stuff that I talk about is more about love and loss and always looking for something brighter, I guess. You know, I'm always looking to surpass the life that we lived.
So today I'm going to talk to Jesus Gonzales. Jesus is a very familiar face with me because he helps me with my podcasts. He also is a poet, and he has published 2 volumes of his poetry, and I also think a collection of essays.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, John.
For being on the other side of the mic this time.
Yeah.
How does one become a poet? Like, what drove you to
Well, you know what?
poetry?
It's not that something that you become. It's just who you are. What I started when I was about 14, I kept on writing stuff all over. I write stuff everywhere. It's on envelopes, on napkins, on everything. And my dad, he kept on saying, well, maybe you should write, you know, let's figure out what to do to get you to write more stuff. He encouraged us a lot. So he bought me a Smith Corona typewriter at that time, and it was a used typewriter, and I think the L would get stuck sometimes. And he paid $35 for it, and it was in the backyard of his sister's house that they would collect junk and sell it and stuff like that. And so he bought it from them for $35, and I started writing on that, which over time I lost a lot of that stuff that I had written on that Smith Corona typewriter. But over time, I would just write everything in notebooks, and I had a collection of notebooks just everywhere. And everywhere I moved, I would lose some sometimes, and sometimes I regret. I go, oh my God, that would have been another book that was already a notebook filled with from the first page to the last page. And then sometimes I think about, oh my God, what was in there, and try to remember stuff that was in there, and I don't remember a lot of that stuff.
Where does your work mostly center on? I mean, what kind of topics do you usually hit on?
Stuff that I talk about is more about love and loss, and always looking for something brighter, I guess. You know, I'm always looking, you know, trying to surpass the life that we lived, because, you know, my family is from Mexican descent. So it was always about following the American dream. My grandfather, my dad's father, he came from Mexico, and he brought his kids with him, and he built a fencing company. And I always say this about my grandfather because he put all the metal fences around Astroworld in Houston. So there's one little piece that still stays out there after all these years. So every time, you know, you're on the freeway and you pass by it, we look at that little fence, because my grandfather's been gone for a long time now. And whenever we see that fence, we know that he put his sweat on and put that fence.
See, that
there.
screams to have a poem written about it right there.
Yeah,
like.
exactly. You know, and I touched on that about my dad's family in my second book, The Lonely Boys Club, because, you know, we were always raised in the summer. We'd go stay like 2 weeks with them, and my grandmother would always take us on the bus down to downtown, and we would go to Crest, and we would go to all those little shops down there in Woolworth. We would go eat in the little deli in the downstairs. And so I always say that my life is both Mexican and American, because we're on my dad's side, it's the corn tortillas, and on my mom's side, it's the flour tortillas. And for us,
is one more American than the other, really, though?
Well,
I don't know.
It's not, but growing up, that's how we distinguished what side was what.
I don't eat corn tortillas. I'm a big flour tortilla guy, so you know,
okay.
I get it.
Well, that's how we distinguished growing up, that the Mexican side was the corn tortillas, because that's all they would eat on that side was corn tortillas, and then on my mom's side, all they ate was flour tortillas. So that's the Mexican and American side. That's how I describe it.
So are you originally from this area, or because I know you were living in California for a while,
right?
So, but are you originally from the Houston area?
Yes, I was born in Houston in St. Joseph Hospital in 1970. And then in 73, we moved to Freeport, Texas, which is, my dad was working for Dow Chemical USA. He was a welder. He was a welder worked for them for 35 years, and he retired from Dow Chemical USA. And in 91, I believe it was, I went to school at the Art Institute of Dallas, and I got an AA from there in music and video at that time, and I was working part-time at a small station called KVN Canal 23. It was Spanish language television. And then from there was an opportunity to go to Miami to work for the network. And I was working master control, so they said, hey, there's this opening. If you're interested, you know, you have to pay your way to go there, but, you know, go talk to them and see what happens. So I called a friend that was living over there in Miami that had worked with in the past. And he says, yeah, come on, you can stay with us, and let's see what happens. And so I went, and that week I went to go talk to them at the network. and I got the job that same week because they needed, sometimes it's you're in the right place at the right time.
So I would imagine the culture in Miami is quite different from the one here, correct?
It was a culture clash for me because it was Cuban, Dominicans, Puerto Ricans, which I still have a lot of friends, and I still eat a lot of that type of food, I don't know if this is, I don't know how you describe this, but what I'm used to here is black, white, or Mexican,
Right.
And going over there, it was a learning experience. I always try to take everything as a learning experience. And so I worked for them for 9 years. And then at that time, my friend that I went to go stay with, he had gone to California, him and his wife. And he said, hey, there's an opening over here if you're interested, And it was funny because the manager had actually called me and he said, hey, we did notice that you had sent your resume over here to California, and it went to the corporate office, but it trickled down to Long Beach. So from LA, it trickled down to Long Beach, which is just like 10 minutes, 15 minutes away. And he goes, if you're interested, we can make that happen. And I said, I was there just sitting doing my push-ups and in my living room. And I said, oh, okay, And they paid everything. It was an all expense paid, move to California, to Los Angeles. And then I was there for a while.
So you've experienced, I guess, so many different cultures of being on both coasts of the United States. How does that filter into your work?
How it filters into my work, I wear my heart on my sleeve. So it's like, I look at people, no matter what race you are, I just look at everybody the same. It doesn't matter who you are or what they are. So a lot of my writing, I've written a lot of scripts too. We spoke about this earlier. I took some screenwriting classes over there in California with Josefina Lopez, who wrote Real Women Have Curves. That's the movie with America Ferrera, like her first movie. And a lot of that, the culture in California was a whole lot different from the culture also in Miami, yes. Because it's just different, even though everybody's the same, everybody's different, but I try not to look at color in any way. I just try to look at everything the same. So in my writing,
but at the same time, though, you have to pay attention to that because
you
just say, the cultures are very different.
You do, because you might say something that's incorrect. And so a lot of my writing is, I try to write some stuff that's bilingual, which is the mixture of English and Spanish, or what they call Spanglish, Another word I picked up in California was dramedy, which is drama and comedy, And in my writing, I always, like I said, I wear my heart on my sleeve. I try to be as honest and live my life with integrity the best that I can. And, growing up with the family, my family, my immediate family, my mom and dad, neither one of them are no longer with us, but the way they raised us, and the life that we lived at that time, my dad was very, very Mexican. So he was very machismo. What he said goes, and that was it. And one thing that he told me when I was growing up was, well, you were our first, and it's funny because we would talk to him in English and he would talk to us in Spanish. We understood each other, but it was just interesting, the dynamic when we were growing up, the way we talked in our home. And so my dad told me one time, he said, well, you know what, like when I was going to go off to school, because I moved to Dallas for those 2 years, those 18 months. And he said, we didn't know anything about college life, how you go to college, how you go to a 4-year
college student.
Yeah. And he said, I didn't know what to do with you. You were my first. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to send you to school. I don't know. I hope I did the right thing with sending, going. The funny thing about going to college in Dallas, my mother went with me, and I don't know if that's part of the Mexican life that, well, you're going to go off to school, but your mom's going with you. So he got us a 2-bedroom apartment in Dallas, and my mom went with me, so the whole family just uprooting and going to Dallas.
Well, every writer I know, myself included, your family life and how you grow up really affects how you write and what you write. And, when you take classes in literature and creative writing, they usually try to teach you these really kind of rigid structures, and they want you to write within those structures. Right. So you can be as creative as you want within these structures.
Well, I didn't really follow the formula. I write the way I write, and sometimes I write where I try to make them rhyme, and I try to find words that rhyme with each other. But a lot of times some of my stuff ends with it not rhyming, so it's not actually following the pandemic formula of how poems are written or whatever. It's just sometimes in my head I'm like thinking, well, first of all, I tried acting. I'm not a good actor. I tried singing. I'm not a good singing. Can't even do karaoke that well. But when I'm writing my poetry, I try to sing them as I'm writing them too.
Mm-hmm.
So that helps me get the thoughts down. If they're, even if it's something that it's rhyming, but if it doesn't rhyme, it doesn't bother me that it's not rhyming.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not really following.
So it's more about
that
the expression for you.
It's more of the expression for
hitting
me.
And a lot of poets are like that. It's more about hitting that emotion rather than
right. And the context of it too. What I feel inside is what I'm, and trying to. I don't know what I try to do with some of my writing. Not that I'm trying to hide stuff or whatever, but I'm trying to make people think and try to figure out what was he talking about there? What was he saying? Well, I know his family, and that's talking about his dad. Oh no, that's talking about when they got a divorce, or that, stuff like that.
So, okay. Well, every writer I know, they always have a work in progress. Do you have anything that you're working on right now?
I do have something, and I did mention to you one time, it's like a young adult type novel that I've been writing on, and I started writing it a year ago when I was still in California. And it's something like a high school type show, like they would show on the CW, but I named everybody like the names that come up in the Texas history, Bastrop, Stephen F. Austin, it's all the younger, their kids or their grandkids that are in high school. And then, it's kind of like some are rich and some are poor. And it's still that, I don't know if you would say the word, if this is correct to even say, like the racist part of what we still deal with here in Freeport, where, it's black and white. And even though nowadays it's not right to say certain things, people still say certain. So it's like trying to deal with that and how to approach it with and trying to be politically correct with it.
Mm-hmm. Maybe the limitations of it.
Right.
Okay.
So
you here at ACC, you said you worked in master control. What are you going to school for now?
I was just going to get a certificate for mass communications, but I've always wanted to do some reporting, do some more writing and like study to be a reporter, which, we've been dabbling in.
Mm-hmm.
I still haven't gotten what I felt like I was going to get out of it. And I've been talking with my professor, Mr. Nichols, and there's some curriculum is changing for next semester. And we've been looking at that. And I'm going to talk to an advisor this week because I'm still not with the certificate. I guess I would be graduating this semester.
Mm-hmm.
And I told him, I said, well, I'm not ready to leave. I said, first of all, I'm having a good time. I'm learning a lot. I'm meeting a lot of people. There's a lot of networking and stuff. So we're going to look at the curriculum and we're going to talk with the advisor and see, what's my next step. Okay. But that's where I'm at right now.
But you're still going to be doing your work on the side, I'm assuming, correct?
Right.
I mean, artists, they've got to be artists. They can't just
shed
that part of their personality.
I use this word, I'm always percolating. It's like a coffee maker where it's I'm always thinking, I'm always doing, and I love to drive. Like I would do a lot of driving from California to here, and it just clears my head and it gives me extra thoughts and it says, oh, I can do this and I can do that, Like we were speaking earlier and you said, well, I was going to, I started thinking, you're there in your bed at night and you're just thinking sometimes, and that's where a lot of the thoughts come. And I say, oh, I could do this, I can do that. You can try it, and if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But a lot of times, at least if you try, that's fine.
All right, so we're going to close this show out. I want you to read one of your works. Which one are you going to read?
I'm going to read, since we've been talking about my parents a lot, I'm going to read one poem about my dad. And he took it wrong at first because he was saying, well, you're saying things about me and this and that, but it's the miscommunication.
What's the title?
It's called Oh Father. Oh Father, look at me. In my eyes, what do you see? I was never asked to be conceived. I was just brought in this world. This is just me. One day you strayed and one day you returned. You expected us to love you, expected us to care, but love can't live in a place that's bare. By love, you were supposed to supply. By love and need, we were not supposed to buy. We paid a high price, so much sacrifice, and you just waltzed right in and expect us to devote our hearts and life to you. You don't own the lot anymore. You continue to think you do, since you still water the plants. But they have grown and blossomed with the peaches and pecans rotten as they fall to the ground. I think of you often. I laugh sometimes, but most of all, rain just falls from the sky. I never thought life could be so difficult as I lay there in my mother's womb. Yet that's all it's been until I'm buried in my tomb. Oh, Father, look at me. In my eyes, what do you see? I have your backside memorized since that's all we've ever seen. When you leaving us is all it's ever been. You put us down, you pull us up, you twist us all around until we give up. Or was that you? You tell us you love us, at times you show us you care. Sometimes I wonder if it's too late to show you we're near. Are we too far away from each other? Many moons from one another? Many miles to travel and many mountains to climb? We're not little boys anymore that you can tell what to do. Domination and manipulation is all that we knew. You've got to realize we are not as young as we used to. Oh, Father, look at me. In my eyes, what do you see?
Thanks for coming to talk to us today. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
I'm John Tompkins. To read these stories and more, visit alvincollege.edu.